leaders in Internet media and the American-made movement. You're listening to Internet Radio America.
Coming to you live from the Mendocino Forest in Northern California. Parrots, People, and Pets. Your hosts this evening are Michael and Mandolin Cox. We would love to welcome the entire world all the way around the globe to our show. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of Parrots, People, and Pets. Tonight, we decided it was about time to share with you intimately who the people are that you listen to on our show and what we're about. The first half hour of the show, we're going to we're just going to basically put it out there to you of what we do, why we do what we do, share with you our family of all the beautiful Fids that we have here. And the following half hour of the show, we're going to have a very dear guest, Bobby Courtwright, that's going to come on and share with you some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful information and an awesome experience that this man went through by having one awesome visitor that came to his sanctuary. Please stay with us. So first, I basically want to introduce myself. My name is Michael Cox. My wife is Mandolin Cox. And we run the Global Nest Exotic Bird Sanctuary in the Mendocino Forest in Northern California. We sit in the middle of 12 million acres of land. When we walk out at 3 o'clock in the morning and it's the full moon, folks, it's like you can just walk out and put your arms around the moon and bring it to the tip. I have waited and waited and waited for so many, many years to be able to finally have, I was a bird, finally have a place where I could actually feel like I can breathe. There's no street signs, there's no traffic lights, there's no gunshots, there's no ambulance going by, and yes, there's no mall. But we have the sacred beat of the heart of the forest that helps to enforce what it is that we do. We have birds here that, for the most part, people have done horrific things to them. We're not a normal sanctuary, okay? Not a rescue, okay? We don't adopt our birds out. We don't sell them. We don't breed them. These birds are brought here and given a forever home. These are birds that animal control in 6 counties in Northern California and Oregon and Washington otherwise would be euthanized had we not been here and doing what we do. I've contacted all of these facilities, and when they come upon a macaw, mainly most of the birds that we have here are macaws. And those of you that have macaws, you're aware of the fact that if they're not happy with you, the incredible amount of damage that they can do to you. Well, instead of having these guys put down because of the horrific things that other human beings have done to them and taken away or attempted to take away their quality of life, I drive wherever it is that I need to drive to, and I go and I get them and I bring them home. I've been doing this for 48 plus years. And I'm not really that old, to be honest with you. Like I said on an earlier show, I'm not quite ready yet to hide my own Easter eggs, but I do have a heart that obviously these birds believe in, as I believe in their hearts. I can take a bird that wants to tear you apart in a matter of moments, pull it to my chest, and sometimes tears roll down my face, and to have a bird lick the tears off your face while it's shaking, not sure whether or not it's going to be hurt anymore. There's nothing like it. It's almost equal to witnessing the birth of a child, you know, in respect that when the child comes into the world and looks at everything, you know, with crystal eyes and the total innocence, these battered and horrifically abused birds are able to take, believe it or not, they're able to take and come back in a moment with trust. And I for many, many years, I've been trying to figure out how in the world that these guys are able to take and accomplish this. You take any individual person or relationship where you have unbelievable abuse. It goes way beyond physical pain. But I mean mental abuse, and you couple both of those energies together. And that's probably why many of us right now, go to psychiatrists. I don't, not that I don't need one. No, I'm kidding. But, we attempt to try and repair the delicious sanity of what we were born with, that delicious moment of having another moment, having another day without fear, without abuse. These birds have taught me something that one day I'm going to write a book, but I'm still working on getting a lot of information from my birds on how to take and do this. A bird that has been beaten up, thrown against walls, shot up with speed, used as a football, just for fun, just for fun in these people's mind's eye, because their lives are so sick and so empty that they can feel some sort of, personal identity, that, wow, I'm really special, I can hurt this beautiful thing that can't fight back. They're able to take and forgive in a heartbeat. I have a green wing. We have 30 birds here. I have a green wing. His name is Rodney. And the first time I was introduced to Rodney, and those of you that know me on Facebook, you know who he is. I walked up to him at a place I was called, and they told me, Michael, I've got a challenge for you. And it took me about 3.5 hours to get there, and I drove there. And the people who owned the facility said, I think we made a mistake in calling you. And I looked at them, I said, what? They said, well, we don't have the insurance to cover you. I said, what do you mean? And these people have been working with birds for many, 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 many years. They said, this bird is going to tear you apart. Nobody can even get near him. We open up his cage door, throw on food, and then shut it and run. And I said, what are you talking about? And Rodney was in this little room, and I looked through the glass window, and he's sitting down on the bottom of the cage, okay? And he's just hissing. And he's shaking his head and his body back and forth like somebody that had just gone through shock treatment. And I looked at these two people, and I said, I don't give a damn about your insurance. I said, I'll take this all on my own. Do you need to go in and print something out on your printer so I can take and sign the affidavit that, if this bird decides to take and dismember me, that you're not going to be responsible? And the wife looked at the husband, and he looked back at her, and he just kind of grinned and looked at me. And I said, why don't you just leave? And I know I was a little bit pompous in my attitude with him, but I said, just leave. And they shook their head, turned around, walked away, and heard one of them mutter, well, Michael, you're on your own on this one. So I opened the door, and I walked in, and I had a little baggie with some grapes and some almonds and some shelled walnut in it that I had brought with me. I walked in, I dropped down on my knees in front of the door of the cage, and all of a sudden one of them walks in and goes, I want you to see this. And they opened the door while I'm on my knees in front of the cage of Rodney, and they threw in a 2x4. And probably in about 28 seconds, Rodney broke this thing in half and tore it apart and hissed and threw himself back and forth against the sides of the cage and was screaming. And I realized at that very moment that this bird had gone through something that no living being should ever, ever have to go through. I looked at them once again. I said, please just leave the room. So I sat there for probably about 20 or 30 seconds, and then I opened up the door. And I knew, somehow I knew, within my heart, not my mind. I just totally, let all my mental inspirations, fear, and all of that, and I just let it go. I just blew it out into the icicle of the space. I opened up the door, and I reached in, and I grabbed him by the bottom of his feet, and I brought him right to my chest. and his head was just underneath my chin. And I said very quietly, I said, no one is ever, ever, ever going to hurt you again. And all of a sudden, this bird stopped shaking and looked up at me, and I reached down in a little baggie, and I took a grape, and I dropped it into Rodney's mouth. And he started eating it. And then I lifted him up higher, and I put his head right into my neck, and I held him. And I said, once again, I said, no one is ever, ever going to hurt you again. And he totally relaxed against me. I stood up. I walked to the door. I opened the door. And the two people that own the facility were just shaking their head. And the lady goes, take him home. And I did. I didn't put him in a carrier. I sat him on the arm of my chair in my car, and I put on some music, and we sang songs that long trip back home. And from that day to now, this bird has absolutely he was able to forgive. He was able to trust again. And that's what I'm trying to get through, is that if a bird can take that has been through such things as this individual bird has gone through, and like I said before, many of the birds that we have here have been through similar things. If they're able to take and forgive and trust in a heartbeat, what is their secret? How do they do this? I don't believe that they ever forget. I don't believe they ever truly forget what they went through. But to be able to take in a moment and believe in heart, to let your heart push that magic out and have another living being in your arms that's been brutally treated, have them feel that and come back and go, oh, damn, man, I'm safe. I get to look at life again without being beaten up. I get to look at life again and feel safe. What's the magic? How do they do this? And I've been working on this for 48 years of trying to figure out how they're able to take and do this so that we can transmit this a little bit further to human beings that have gone through horrific things, of how do you take and not necessarily forget, but to be able to take and believe again in another heart that you feel safe with, and to be able to just simply let it all go. That's what we do here at the Global Nest Exotic Bird Sanctuary in the Mendocino Forest. And that's who we are. I'll take on any bird, and I say this, no ego, none, because I don't have an ego to bruise. But I have a heart that's real. And I know those of you that are listening right now, you have the same heart, no matter what kind of animal that you have, no matter what kind of relationship that you have. We all have been given that delicious gift of having another day. And anything that attempts to take and walk into your life and displace it, my simple recommendation to you is you need to let it go. I had a person once, probably about a year ago, wrote me and said, I have this beautiful bird, and it loves me so very, very much, and every time I hold it, I cry. And I said, well, why do you cry? And she said, because I feel so good. I feel so good feeling its heart beating against mine. But my husband hates it. And my bird hates my husband. I said, why do you think that is so? I said, and she goes, well, I think because of the fact that she knows that my husband hates my bird. And I was brutally honest with her. I said, you know what? I think the choice has already been made. I think you need to off the husband. And 2 months later, she wrote me back and she said, thank you. off the husband. I told him to go have a nice day unless he made other plans. So that's what it's about. You make a commitment to something that can't stand up on its own and defend itself because of what human beings can do, and you have someone within your family unit or a friend or whatever that comes over, and all of a sudden your birds start freaking out because they're uncomfortable with that, they're sending you a message, because you know what? They don't do it through the mind. They do it through the heart. They do it through that delicious, delicious pulse of what makes this whole universe continue the way that it does. You can't lie with your heart. You can't mask who and what you are when it comes to heart. So, once again, to attempt to come full circle here and not bore you to the point where you want to log off the chat wing or hang up and go have a cocktail or something, my wife and I are the people that care about living things as much as we care about ourselves. And sometimes, to be honest with you, even more. I can't imagine my life without these beautiful, beautiful birds that are at our sanctuary that otherwise would be put down and euthanized because society said, well, they can't be rehomed, so we got to kill them. Well, I stopped that in 6 counties in Oregon and Washington, 6 counties in Northern California. I stopped that from happening. I put it out there, and I said, you know what? You guys just stop this. There's a place for these guys to come. There's a place for these guys to live their lives out and to be loved. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life. And I really, really didn't realize until I made that kind of decision of what it meant to live as opposed to exist. If you take the time, and I say this lovingly, if you take the time, no matter what your situation is, whether you're a depressed person, whether you're manic, whether you're taking prescription drugs, whether you're going to the psychiatrist once a week or whatever, it's easy. If you take the time to stand up for something else that doesn't have the tools and the means to protect and stand up for themselves, you will truly know the meaning between living and just existing. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to enter this world, and I can't think of a better way to leave it. Mandolin?
Yes.
It's your turn.
All right, well, we've only got a couple minutes here until break. But this is a special episode of Parrots, People, and Pets. Usually we give information to people about pet-related health issues, behavioral issues, things like that. But tonight, Michael and I thought it would be a good idea for half of the show, at least, to give our listeners a little more information about us and our daily lives in our sanctuary. We want you to feel free to call in and tell us a bit about yourself and your birds of rescue if you want, or maybe you have some questions for us. But in the meantime, we want to tell you a little bit about us, and at 1:30, we're going to have a special guest, Barbie Courtwright, join us and tell us a little bit about Somiji's visit to Feathered Friends Forever, which we talked about last week on our show. But anyway, I met Michael on Facebook, actually. I was volunteering at Angel Wings Parrot Rescue in Florida, and he was one of the people that Facebook recommended that they think you might know, that they have on the side of their website. And eventually I added him, and I saw a post he had made about, wanting people to help educate others about birds, and especially parrots, and he described the forest that he lived in a sanctuary in Northern California. And I'm originally from Southern California, and I have family out here. So I messaged him asking if I could come visit and see a sanctuary, and I never went back. And I ended up falling in love with the birds and with Michael, and it's been 17 months now that I've been here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the different birds that we have and their conditions and where they came from. But right now we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about us and our sanctuary, so stay tuned.
You're listening to a special edition of Parrots, People, and Pets. leaders in Internet media and the American-made movement. You're listening to Internet Radio America.
Rowdy Bush Incorporated, premium bird food for your valuable pet. Formulated by renowned avian nutritionist Tom Rowdy Bush. Rowdy Bush bird foods are fed to pet birds worldwide when high-quality diet is a must. All of our food is 100% edible, contains no added sugar, animal byproducts, artificial colors, or flavors. Please visit www.roudYbush.com or call 1-800-326-1726 to place your order today. Need therapy but can't afford to sit on the couch of a therapist's office for answers? Tune in to Global Therapy, the most therapeutic show on the planet. Heal your heart and mind by listening to others and sharing your own issues. So many people in the world today suffer with emotional problems that can be solved without having to spend a fortune.
Begin to live a better life and see the world in a brighter light. Hosted by Michael Cox of the Global Nest Exotic Bird Sanctuary. Every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right after Parrots, People, and Pets on InternetRadioAmerica.com.
This portion of the broadcast is brought to you by Tillytown, proudly selling American-made. Look for a unique place to shop for the perfect gift? Then come visit Tillytown. That's TILLIETOWNE.com. 100% American-made.
Attention all animal lovers. This is Cynthia Gary, the inventor of Scratch and All. We know all animals love to scratch. Scratch and All is a safe, unique, American-made animal enrichment product that can be mounted flat on a wall or bent over corners. All four sides interlock so you can design a grid tailored specifically to your animal's needs, and it can be a supplement to acupressure. Go to scratchandall.com and take advantage of the celebration bundle. Nearly 11,000 sold. That's the word scratch, the letter N as in Nancy, ALL.com, or call 1-888-9-SCRATCH.
Leaders in Internet media and the American-made movement. You're listening to Internet Radio America. All right, let's get back to Michael and Mandee, and it's a special edition, Parrots, People, and Pets.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is a special episode of Parrots, People, and Pets. We usually have our show Sunday evenings at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But tonight, Michael and I are kind of talking about us and our sanctuary rather than giving out information. This is kind of a chance for our listeners and new listeners to be a little more intimate with us. We usually don't give out too much information about ourselves, but we're kind of telling the backstory of what we do and the story of some of the parrots that we have, things like that. I kind of mentioned how we met. I've always loved birds, ever since my first parakeet when I was 2 or 3. His name was Bluey, because he was blue, and my sister had a green parakeet named Greenie because he was green. And I've always had birds since then, parakeets, Quaker parrots, cockatiels, doves, finches. I would always rescue doves that fell out of their nest, or sometimes my dad would hit them with his dump truck, going through the wilderness areas of California, and he would bring me home birds, and I would take care of them. But I always loved larger parrots, but I never really found a place where I thought I'd be permanently, so I always restrained myself from getting one. As a young girl, I always wanted a cockatoo. I wanted an umbrella cockatoo or a sulfur-crested cockatoo so bad. And even when I had the money for one and everything, and I, had visited a few rescues and everything, I still didn't get one, even though I wanted one really bad because, I just wasn't really settled in somewhere. But now, at our sanctuary, we have 30 birds, one of which is a wild starling that fell out of its nest. He's actually ready to be released in the fall, so we'll be back to our original 29. But the birds at the rescue I volunteered at in Florida were all really sweet. They didn't really come from abusive backgrounds, and most of them were loved but had to be given up because of health problems or whatever. But the birds here at Michael's Sanctuary have almost all come from abusive backgrounds. And some took to me right away, and some took a while to gain their trust. There are still a couple that won't take to me because they're very attached to Michael. For instance, one is Rika, the severe macaw, and the other is Piehead, who really isn't that friendly with either of us, but he tolerates Michael more than he tolerates me. But otherwise, we all get along. And I have my favorite bird in the whole world. Her name is Bugla. She's my military macaw. And we are so in love. She wants to be with me every second of the day. And when I go to put her back in her cage, she tries to bite me. So I have to hold her a certain way. But she always dances, or she does chicken head when I pass her cage because she wants out. And she starts squawking in the morning for me to come out and get her. Her last home, she was never handled. She was in complete darkness. She was fed sunflower seeds or wild bird seed only. There wasn't one single toy in her cage, and probably, I would say, several inches of feces piled up at the bottom of her cage. It was horrible. I actually can't really go into details about it, but it was awful. And she was there for several years. And she didn't even have a name. Her owner never named her. She just called her Bird. But now she gets all the attention you can imagine. I actually call her Leechla because she attaches herself to the front of my shirt, and she just hangs there and never wants to leave. And she regurgitates for me. She knows when I'm not feeling good, she'll come right up to me and try and feed me. And we have a very special connection like I've never felt with any kind of bird before. And whenever I have her on the back of my chair in the computer room and I leave to go down the hall or into the kitchen, it's not very long until she comes down to follow me. And she's actually responsible for getting me obsessed with military macaws. I love that bird more than I could ever express. She is blind in her right eye, so we have to be careful not to approach her from the right side. And I think if I ever have my own human child, I wouldn't love it any more than I love my Bugla. And then I have my Sierra. He is a male severe macaw. He is a total brat bird, but he loves me, and I love him very much. I actually met him when I was volunteering for Angel Wings Parrot Rescue in Florida, and I fell in love with him while I was there. And we actually had him shipped out here from Florida. But before he was shipped here, he had been adopted out to a couple or a few homes, but he would always end up biting them, and he was always returned back to the rescue. And he had never really connected with anyone before for the several years that the rescue had him until I came along as a volunteer, and we hit it off. And when I came here to Michael's Sanctuary, I fell in love with Rodney the Green Wing. A lot of you know him. He's featured in a lot of Michael's artwork. We took to each other immediately. It took me a while to gain the trust of a couple of the blue and golds, but we all get along now. And a couple of the African grays took me a while to get along with, too, but now I can pick all of them up easily. We take the birds long trips to the store sometimes. We have a little seat perch thing for them to ride on in the car. We don't really use harnesses, although many people think that's the only right way to take a bird outside. We hold one of their feet tightly, and if you pay good enough attention, I think that's good enough. These birds are extremely sensitive, and I know that most of them would never allow a harness anywhere near them, let alone on their body. We keep an eye out for hawks or other predators. We are very careful. And as far as our daily lives go, we wake up early, like 6 to 7, and we feed and water the birds. I'll clean their cages every other day or every third day. Some birds need to be cleaned more often than others. And in the morning, usually, before it gets too hot, we bring some of the birds out into the sunroom where we have play stands and bungees in there for them. And all of them are spaced out so none of the birds mess with the other birds. Our birds like to have their space. They don't really get along with each other when they're right next to each other. And actually, our guest that we had a couple weeks ago, Stephanie Mueller, brings in parrots that usually come from a bad background, too. And she said that none of her birds seem to get along next to one another either. So I'm kind of wondering if that's something that commonly happens with abused parrots. I'm not sure. But at noon each day, we give out treats, which is usually apples, bananas, and some dehydrated fruits and veggies, which the San Francisco Bay brand actually gave us as a donation to our sanctuary, and the birds love them. They're called instant treats. You just add water and let it sit for a while, and they die over it. And usually we'll play Michael's bird therapy CD, which is like rainforest ambient music. If it's hormone time, like right now, it calms them down. You would never know that we have 30 birds here, because most of the time it is so quiet here. The only time it's loud, actually, is at noontime when it's treat time. They know it when the clock hits exactly 12 p.m. They have an amazing internal clock. They will go off at exactly 12 o'clock. We put the birds to bed at about 6 p.m., sometimes 5 p.m. during the winter when they wake up later and it gets dark earlier. And we don't cover any of our birds. Just close the blinds, turn the lights off, and refrain from passing by their cages during the night. We have our own little room, which we call the theater room, with a TV and a couple laptops. We don't have cable, but we have Netflix, and we watch movies sometimes, but it helps to not disturb them during the night. Since I've been here, we've taken in about a dozen birds, almost half of all the birds we have here, mostly small birds, but also Brandy, the military macaw, Lily, the umbrella cockatoo, Sierra and Bugla, which I have mentioned to you guys about, Zero, the African gray, Sparky, the Jende, Lulu and Anakin, the conures, the wild starling I told you about, 2 parakeets, a finch, and a canary that only has 1 foot, and a ringneck dove. So that's kind of a basic overview about what we have here and what we do. I believe Bobby Courtwright is going to be calling in as a guest. He's going to be talking to us about Sri Swamiji, who is considered a holy man in India and actually all over the world. He has followers even in the United States. I believe it was a success. He had him visit Feathered Friends Forever, which is in Georgia, for quite a while. I think he left the same day. But I believe he's actually considering coming to our sanctuary sometime. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, it is. But that's down the road, so to speak. But I think Bobby, are you online yet? I'm sorry, Frank, you told me not to ask that. Okay. But in the meantime, Bobby Courtwright is going to be calling in at any moment to share his beautiful, beautiful experience with a beautiful human being that has tons and tons of birds in India and has followers and all over the world. And Bobby actually shared in the beauty of being able to actually meet this man personally. And I talked with Bobby earlier this evening before the show, and he said, I asked him prior to the Swamiji coming to him, I said, I want you to look at him straight in the eyes and I want you to feel his heart. And Bobby wrote me back, and he called me back, and he said, you know what, I believe I felt the man's heart, and it was absolutely beautiful. So we're waiting for Bobby to come online.
Bobby, I believe you're here, are you? I just got a message on chatting that he's calling now, so any second.
So while Bobby is calling in, thank you once again, folks, for listening to our intimate conversation regarding who I am and who my wife is and what we do here, so that you know us just a little bit more.
Bobby, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Mandee. Hi, Michael. Hi, folks.
Greetings and welcome to the special edition, Parrots, People, and Pets.
Well, I just wonder if, as amazing as this experience yesterday was, if this isn't perhaps, I don't want to say collateral damage, but if this isn't just a result of that also.
In what way?
Well, you were just given an opportunity here to do another show where
right.
we could share with this phenomenal event with people. And Michael and I were talking about it a little earlier, and I had to wait as long as I could because I almost ran my phone battery dead as he and I were having such a great conversation. But I want to tell everybody hello from Stumpy and Oscar and the 1,400 birds out at Feathered Friends. Ron, who's Big Bird, he's hiding in there under an assumed alias. Hi, Ron. And I think Larry, he is our right-hand man at Feathered Friends. I think he's tuned in also. It's a small group of people, and we do, as Michael and Mandee do, as much as we can for as many birds as we can. Mandee, I wanted to say something where you were talking about wanting a snuggle bird, an umbrella cockatoo. Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Well, we actually have one, and when I was at that age, when I really wanted one, I don't think I would have been able to. Where I was at the time, renting rooms and stuff, people don't really put up with the noise that an umbrella cockatoo makes, which I knew actually at that age. So I was careful, and I made the right decision to wait.
Yeah, it's they're as we all know, a 4-year-old child. They're as lovable as they come, but boy, they sure love attention. Boo Boo is the little girl that travels with me. She's a sulfur. She got to do a trick for Swajimi, and as did all the other ones. So, Michael, I'll just fill these folks in a little bit on what happened, if you'd like.
Absolutely, please. Folks, those of you that are not aware right now of what we're about to talk about is that Bobby and his beautiful, beautiful sanctuary down there, him and run it, were graced with the presence of a beautiful, beautiful human being. And this person, I really, really do want to meet. And Bobby put a bug in his ear, says, you really need to come out and meet Michael and Mandee and see our birds. And he had such a beautiful, beautiful experience with this human being that has tons and tons of birds. Okay, he's according to Bobby, and I believe him. Okay, this person is beyond magical. He has the same kind of heart that I was talking to you folks earlier about, of having that kind of heart where your birds will listen, birds will feel, and they will respond. So, Bobby, would you please share, first of all, explain a little bit who Swamiji is and what he's about and what your experience was when he came to visit your sanctuary?
Okay, well, first of all, it's not really mine. I'm just one of the volunteers. Ron Johnson, his wife Tammy, actually founded it 15 years ago. This is the 10th year in the Harlem location, and he's Big Bird. He'll usually pop on the chat wing as that. He's masquerading under one of the guest aliases right now to be incognito.
Bobby, as far as I'm concerned, I know that Ron, is the proprietor, but I think that you guys basically are partnering, if you will, in this sanctuary, and I think, you know what I'm trying to say, man. You got the heart.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just want to make sure you know.
Feel free to pick up the phone. You got an awesome, awesome volunteer and human being that's working with you, and you should be very, very thankful to have such a beautiful heart on this planet to help with what you are doing, my beautiful friend. Please continue.
You're making me blush. I've kind of become the marketing guy because, as everyone can tell, I'm very shy and introverted.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah. Well, what happened, and Ron got an email a while back, an unknown email, that said that this individual, Sri Swamiji, wanted to visit the rescue. We didn't know anything. He'd seen it on a television show. So we had no idea, and it took a while, and some emails and phone calls, and arranged the visit. Well, he had gone to California last year, and he has 400 parrots at his ashram which is his home in India. He's in the process of building a $5 million aviary for them. Many of them, he feeds almost all of them himself every day. He has 12 veterinarians, avian vets on staff. He loves all animals, but especially parrots. And he has multiple videos on YouTube showing these birds, showing him talking to birds. And he's a very warm, loving individual. We were a little bit nervous, I guess is probably a good word, and Ron will back that up, because, this is a religious leader from another country. We're good old boys in Georgia. So we did everything we could to get some protocol, what's the proper way to greet him, what respect, and, and things like that to make it a good visit. His right-hand man came out and checked the place out, made sure, we had everything done, and he had a place to be by himself if he needed it, and all the things that to make a guest comfortable, as you guys would do if someone was coming to your home.
Right. But Bobby, we're actually going to take a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Sri Samiji's visit to Feathered Friends Forever. So everybody stay tuned.
It's the 4th of July weekend, and we just want to bring light to folks across the country about American-made products and what's going on in American-made manufacturing and how we can help spread the word that American manufacturing is alive and well.
Why are you doing this?
You know what? Because I'm just, I go into stores all the time, and I see all these products that are made in China or in other parts of the world, and realize, why are we not buying American-made products?
Why aren't we, Frank?
I think the accessibility has been weak, but the fact of the matter is we can create jobs by buying American-made products. So why wouldn't we want that? So we came up with the 4 Days for America idea and asked all Americans to pledge to buy 4 products during the 4-day period and bring light to American manufacturing, get some jobs going in our country again.
In terms of we, the consumer, do you want us to go into just a random store and look at labels, or does your site help us find cool American products?
We want people to, when you go pledge to buy the products, if you go into the store, you really got to look at the labels, and that's what we want you to do. We want you to start looking at those labels, and of course you can go to the site. There's some great American-made companies on the site.
Ultimately, are you hoping for a groundswell of movement, not just here in Massachusetts, but across America?
It is across America. I mean, we've expanded all across America. We've had pledges come in from all 50 states. It's so exciting. So it is an American event, not just regionalized here, but of course we want people from New England to get in on this because this is where I'm from.
Go to 4daysforamerica.com.
Welcome back to the special edition of Parrots, People, and Pets.
Everyone who's joining us right now, we're talking to Bobby Courtwright. He's a volunteer at Feathered Friends Forever in Georgia, the second largest parrot rescue in the world, I believe, and the first largest in the country. They have about 1,400 parrots right now, and they were just visited by His Holiness Sri Samiji. So, Bobby, we were talking about his visit. You also had a news cruise and everything like that at the rescue. Is that correct?
That's right, Mandee. We had our local Channel 12, as a CBS affiliate. They sent one of their reporters, George Lopez, out, and we met Swamiji at the airport with Fiona, one of our female eclectus, and he was totally surprised. And sat in the VIP, he charter jetted in, sat in the VIP lounge and played with her for a couple of minutes. And this is what Michael and I had talked about earlier, when you can tell if a person is truly a bird person.
Right.
She went to him, she stepped right up to him, and without hesitation, snuggled up to him, looked at him the way they do, and he was talking to one of his people, and she just started grooming his beard. Almost immediately, and just, it's like they'd known each other for years and years. She had a little bit of trouble. She was a little uncomfortable on the ride down there, which, I'd mentioned to Venkat, his right-hand man, and we got ready to get into the car to head to the rescue, and Swamiji looks at me, and he hands me the bird, and says, if she's uncomfortable in the car, and I said, well, Your Holiness, of all the people on the planet, who better to calm this bird on a ride? And he just got this wonderful, warm smile on his face, took Fiona into his arms, and off they went. So it was really a great welcome for him. And we had a number of kind of special bird surprises for him. Ron's African gray pepper in the show earlier, Michael, you'd mentioned the one bird that people were throwing around like a football. We can actually take Pepper, because she trusts Ron and I so much, and toss her gently and carefully back and forth like a baseball with her arms and her little feet and wings together. And she trusts us implicitly, and we just amaze people, including Swamiji, with that. Well, she was ready for him, and she gave him a traditional religious greeting with her little talons all in a prayer position, and tipped, bowed her head toward him.
Bobby, let me ask you something real quick. What you just mentioned regarding being able to take and toss that bird back and forth between one another, and having this bird trust you. How does it make your heart feel to know that you have evoked your heart into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful creature, and to have that kind of trust? What does that do for your heart? How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes us all feel good, and especially with Pepper, because she's Ron's baby. Okay, he's had her forever. He has trained her. She doesn't say very much for an African gray. She only, says a very few words, but she sleeps with him. She wakes him up in the morning. She's his bird, and you know how African grays can become very territorial with their owners. She's taken me into her circle of friends, and trusts, after 7 years, she now trusts me enough that she'll step up to me if I tell her, come on, we're going to go see Daddy. She understands I'm going to take her to Ron. And in the first time, she realized, okay, this guy's not going to drop me, and she's good with it now. So it's really a wonderful, wonderful feeling when you can do that, with these creatures.
Folks, that's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing. There are many of us on the planet that can share in such a thing, but there's so many more that don't. I mean, to have that kind of trust, okay, to have that kind of love, all right, I can't think of anything better in my life. I truly can't. I mean, to wake up in the morning and go, I've got this beautiful, beautiful, delicious, delicious spirit inside bird clothing that says to your heart, okay, I love you and I trust you. And I don't know about you, Bobby, but I'm thinking, to be honest with you, most of the birds, in fact, all of the birds that I have here, will always be much more intelligent than I could ever dream of being. So my only vehicle, if you will, to be able to take and get through to these guys is I've got to do it with heart, because my mind, I'm going to fail drastically. Please go on.
Yeah, they outsmart all of us. There's a YouTube video about some dolphin cockatoos that solved a 15-step mechanical puzzle in 2 hours. One couldn't do it. Watched the first one do it, and immediately went right through the puzzle to get the nut. So it just demonstrates that they are very, very much smarter than they let on to us. They know if we know how smart they are, we'll put them to work. Anyway, we got back to the rescue.
Many child labor laws. Bobby, shut up.
We got back to the rescue, and Swamiji went in and gave a little greeting to everyone, and Pepper and Boo said hello to him. He got to meet our ambassador, Hannah, who is a lovely 14-year-old girl with some very special needs. He met some of the other birds, and we wondered what to give a man who has a $2 million hat and has everything, any material possession he wants. And what had happened a few years ago, one of the birds knew of his visit. Jaybird is Larry's Moluccan cockatoo, who can be a whole story about abuse. The bird was rescued by Larry and lives in the flight up front with Casper and a few other ones. He was carving on one of the pine poles that we put in them for them to play with and, carve. And he had carved what appeared to be a parrot. We took some pictures. I grabbed a bow saw. Ron says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm saving a piece of art." Told me,
hey, Bobby.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Venkat.
Venkat!
Hey.
Are you there?
I'm listening. Yes, I'm listening to all the great things that you're talking about at Straits Visit. That was awesome and wonderful. I just want to let everybody know who's on the call, who's on the show today, that we had a wonderful time. It's the greatest of the times that I have personally ever spent. And of course, His Holiness must have spent a lot of such times, but he's been very pleased with the visit yesterday and meeting all the birds that we had met there.
Well, I am so happy
wonderful.
you called in. Can you share, I mean, you can do it better than I can. Can you share a little bit more on, what he did and his perspective of the visit and yours?
Sure. As you had earlier mentioned, and hello everyone on the show. My name is Venkat. I've been a devotee of Sri Swamiji, Sri Ganapati Sachidananda Swamiji. He has been the Pandit from the Avadhuta Dattapeetham in Mysore, the southern part of India. And he has been to the birds for quite some time now. But he has been planning with an open-to-sky bird aviary, and he has seen the Feathered Friends Forever was on a local but yet international television show with Channel 12. Is it Channel 12 or 12 Channel, Bobby? I don't remember the name.
Channel 12 News, right?
Yeah, Channel 12. And incidentally, he had seen it while Sri Swamiji was camping in London. That's why I called it an international channel, because the show has been international. So he had seen it, and he had immediately asked Sri Prasadi, his personal assistant, his personal secretary, to call in and check on Feathered Friends Forever immediately. That's in the middle of the night at 11:30 p.m. And Prasadi immediately did a lot of research and found Feathered Friends Forever, and stationed in Augusta, and he just found out what the programs are going on, how the rescue has been happening, and all that stuff. And he wrote about knowing more and with Swamiji's intent to know more and potentially visit. And immediately, back came the reply from, I think it was Ron who replied immediately, that this is the program that's happening, and this is how they care for the parrots and birds and all that stuff. That is most intent and interest in birds and rescuing the birds. So Swamiji right then made up his mind and made a promise that he will be visiting and seeing them and helping them develop the center and help more birds, more species, more parrots whenever he visits them. That visit had happened like in less than a month's time, I would say. And we were on the yesterday with this wonderful program, a set of beautiful people, and of course the most wonderful species of the birds, all the parrots. I personally have loved touring it. That was my second time being at the center. When Sri Swamiji has announced that he wanted to be there, I just personally wanted to go there, see that place, and see how to make arrangements for Sri Swamiji this visit so that it's not any inconvenience for either the birds or for Swamiji. For if the birds are inconvenienced, Swamiji will not be happy, because he loves the birds so much. He has been for birds rescuing so much in India and all over the world. There is no one big bird aviary that Srinivas has not visited. The world's largest bird aviary in South Africa has been visited by him last year, and he was petting all the untamable birds. Even the untamable birds have been tamed by him, and the organizers have actually warning Swamiji that he should not go near those birds. They are like giant eagles. Swamiji just hung all those fears, the scary warnings, but he went ahead, and all of them, very interestingly, have come to Sri Swamiji. All the birds that were untamable have come to Sri Swamiji, talking and interacting with him. There were a lot of videos that were made, and one of the international ornithologists has actually written a huge article in one of the South African magazines about this particular visit and how influenced he was with Sri Swamiji's style of interaction with the birds and the way he takes care of the birds. And now that we know how much he takes care of the birds, there is no wonder there are so many millions of his devotees who want to see him every minute, who want to be close to him every moment, because we can easily imagine how much he cares for his devotees, disciples, and his children. And particularly coming back to the visit yesterday, it was really awesome, except for the scorching sun for some of us old people who could not take it. It was an awesome visit. The kind of welcome that Sri Swamiji received in the airport with Fiona, I think you've already covered about it, Bob, but the kind of welcome he received with Fiona and with Pepper and his interactions with all the birds, particularly the painting that he has so respectfully and warmly received from Hannah, and of course the bird carving that is made, which almost mimics his posture of blessing everybody on one side and the parrot sitting on the other side. It's like awesome. And these are the things that are inimitable. Let me tell you, this visit made, personally to me, this visit made a whole lot of difference in my attitude, in my, I would say, in my behavior towards so many birds. And the way, Swamiji's appreciation on his way back to the airport and on his way back to Detroit was all towards the affection, the care, the passion that Ron and Bobby and other volunteers there shared for the birds, which is very rare. It's not that you find bird people everywhere in the world. It's not that every person is a bird person. There are so many people who love animals, but there are very few who love birds as much as Ron, Bobby, and the other volunteers there do. It's coming from the bottom of my heart that the kind of appreciation that Sri Swamiji has had for you after the visit yesterday was really, really very high. Very high regard for the service that you are rendering for the bird species all over. And it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of courage. It takes, beyond anything, it takes a lot of passion and compassion to be like that with birds, to take care of them like your children. The opening remark that Ron has made, Sri Swamiji, Your Holiness, you have so many children all over the world, millions to take care of. I have 1,400 children. My family is not small either. That's what Ron had made as a welcome remark when he had seen Sri Swamiji. I was really moved by that. That's really how they are taking care of all the birds. I'm happy that I was there yesterday. Honestly, I'm happy. I still feel that as an honor. And I'm sure Ron, Bobby, and all the other people there also felt the same day when they have seen and interacted with Sri Swamiji. The loving smile, the most blissful smile that Swamiji had, even in the scorching heat, going all over the birds, interacting with all of them. I would definitely like you to share a little more, Bobby, on how you felt about the visit and what it is all about. Sure thing.
Well, Venkat, thank you so much for calling in. We're all still feeling truly blessed, and as I mentioned in an email to you today, I'm still just up and just happy. We sat there when I returned from the airport. I know we're running short on time. I took Fiona out for Sundar and his family, and they held him and they did pictures with Fiona. And Sundar, who didn't really hold the bird all day, sat there and he looks at me. He goes, all of a sudden, I'm very relaxed and peaceful.
I think this is absolutely beautiful. I am so very, very happy that you called in. We also are looking forward to the possibility of having Our Holiness join our sanctuary, come and visit here, and to be able to see and hold birds that have gone through the worst of things, and to share the heart, share the magic, share the belief, so that we can not only encourage what we do, but also to encourage what it is that you do.
For those who are listening, we've been talking to Venkat. He's Swamiji's U.S. liaison, and, we'd actually love to have you on the Sundays show of Parrots, People, and Pets, talk a little bit more about his visit. Maybe you can get in touch with Bobby in the meantime. So thank you, everyone, for joining our show. Thank you, Venkat, for joining us. Thank you, Bobby. Join us on Sunday, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for another episode of Parrots, People, and Pets.